Welcome Specimen and good weekend. Today is Sunday, it is September the 18th. For the record, today is the 1698th anniversary of the victory of Constantine over Licinius at the Battle of Chrysopolis. This was the battle between the two emperors of the Roman Empire back during the Tetrarchy era, where Roman Empire was split into two, and this victory of Constantine elevated him to the sole emperor of the Roman Empire and started his very long dynasty as Constantine the Great. What we have for today with us has been a sweep of developer news and feedback given back to the community for the incoming new build of the beta of Dragonflight, which as usual comes around the reset days. So around Wednesday to Thursday is when you get a new build in the beta, and this time we've gotten more communication to more of the specs for Dragonflight. We've gotten messages to Mistweaver Monks, to Rogues, to Feral Druid and Restoration Druid, as well as Hunters. The first in line, mostly because it's the shortest amount of changes, the shortest amount of news, is the Hunter. The main change is that your current Shadowlands legendary Nezingueri's trapping apparatus has been removed. Serrated Shots has moved to where Nezingueri's trapping apparatus was in the talent tree, the general talent tree for Hunter. The main change is a yet again reworked Sentinel Owl. Sentinel's wisdom has changed in its design. Now it grants your party 5% leech and 10% magic damage reduction while this Sentinel Owl is active. So Hunters get a damage reduction party ability. They are the first class, the first DPS class to get a damage reduction ability after Rogues and their Smoke Bomb used to reduce the damage taken by 10% for players inside it. So ever since Smoke Bomb has not been a thing in PvE, we have not had any other class, any other DPS spec with damage reduction for the party. You could make a case for Darkness, right? But Darkness isn't really damage reduction, so Hunter is now the tried and true only DPS spec with a damage reduction available. Of course, this is still not super mandatory, it's not raid-wide, it's not for the entire raid, it's just for your party, but it's still something, Very likely better than what it was before. Magic damage reduction is likely to be more useful than that. We then have the confirmation that Binding Shot is now a 3-second stun instead of the previous route, and then there is an extra follow-up to your Tar Trap talent. When your Tar Trap is activated, all enemies in the Tar Trap's area are rooted for 4 seconds. More utility for Hunter as well. Now you have lost your root from Binding Shot, which has turned into an AoE stun, but now you get a root in your Tar Trap. Of course, the root of Tar Trap is nowhere near as good as the root of Binding Shot, because the root of Tar Trap only lasts for 4 seconds and breaks on damage, so, you know, it's not really that good compared to the old Binding Shot and the way it worked, but at the very least it's something more than what you have already as a Hunter. After Hunter, we have Restoration Druid. Restoration Druid hasn't gotten actual changes, you know, they have just gotten some messages from the developers and not much else. The only actual ability getting changed is something that was not yet implemented. You know, they were still thinking about what to make of it, and this spell will be added in the next build of the beta. This spell is Scenarios Guidance, which is right here. It's the follow-up talent after your dual choice node between Incarnation or Convoke, and it reads: during Incarnation, Tree of Life, you gain clear casting every 6 seconds. The cooldown of Incarnation Tree of Life is reduced by 1.5 seconds when Life Bloom blooms, or by 1 second when your Regrowth's initial heal critically strikes. On the Convoke side of the buff, Convoke the Spirit's cooldown is reduced by 50%, and its duration and number of spell casts is reduced by 25%. Convoke the Spirits has an increased chance to use an exceptional spell or ability. So this one, of course, being the follow-up talent to the choice of Incarnation and Convoke, is buffing both of them, depending on which one you are taking. I particularly like about this talent the extra on Life Bloom. Tree of Life getting its cooldown reduced whenever Life Bloom blooms. Generally speaking, Life Bloom doesn't heal for a lot. It's not very powerful as a heal for a druid, but now with the ability that you still had before to use a talent to get 2 life blooms out at once, and now you also have this talent that allows you to reduce the cooldown of your incarnation. Whenever your life bloom is blooming, it can give some extra value to life bloom. It can give some extra reasons for a Resto Druid to use life bloom effectively, particularly in raids, where it's not nearly as important because of all of the other powerful AoE healing you have in the raid as a Resto Druid. Most of the other stuff is going to be some more moving and swapping of the talents around, which have not yet implemented into the game or into the talent tree calculator, so we're going to skip them for now until we see a more clear picture of how things have changed, also because Blizzard is not really pointing them out, all of them, one by one, so we don't even know properly what has changed in its entirety. So we can move to a class that was detailed by Blizzard much more clearly, which is Rogue. Rogue has gotten some significant changes to its general talent tree. So the first thing to point out before we go into the things that have been swapped around, moved around, talents changed and whatnot, is the discounts that I'm really happy about, because it was one of the things that I disliked when I looked at the Rogue talent tree, which is the costs of lethality and alacrity. They used to be 3-point talents. I don't like 3-point talents, it's too much. It's very hard to make a talent feel good when you have to spend 3 points in it. So the Rogue devs agree. This is the change. Now, both lethality and alacrity, which are needed to get to some pretty powerful talents like Mark for Death or Cold Blood, now only require 2 points instead of 3. Lethality isn't even nerfed. You don't even lose value because you're putting 2 points into it instead of 3. Alacrity gets nerfed a bit. Now, instead of stacking the haste up to 10%, you're stacking it up to 8%. So you lose just 2% haste, but you gain 1 more talent point, which is still very powerful. And then you have also Resounding Clarity, the follow-up to your current Kyrian Covenant ability, now only has 1 point instead of 2. And much like before, you're still getting 3 more additional combo points, with just 1 talent point spent instead of 2. So you are not even getting nerfed or losing that much, and you are still gaining 3 talent points. You know, if you were planning as a rogue to take lethality, to take alacrity, and to take Resounding Clarity, now you find yourself with 3 more talent points to spend, which is very good. Now, on the actual changes themselves, change number 1, Recuperator, which was your heal on your Slice and Dice, has been moved much further up in place of Elusiveness. Elusiveness and Cheat Death together are brought to where Recuperator was, so right after the improve to your sprint, and now they are a choice node. This is perhaps a particular talking point for rogues, because now 2 of your very powerful defensives, so now you can no longer have both of them at the same time. The benefit, of course, is they are much earlier in the tree. So before, yes, you could get both of them, but you were forced to choose those 2 lines down the tree. So you were forced to go down the Resounding Clarity line and the Shadow Dance line if you wanted both of them. Now you don't have to worry about that because they are very, very early on in your talent tree. Talking about options, another thing has been turned into an option, which is this thing right here. So Blizzard is turning around, is changing Night Stalker and Tide Spender. Those 2 things right there have now been swapped in their positions, and Night Stalker is no longer a choice node with Improved Ambush. Now, Improved Ambush goes in the place of Deeper Stratagem, and Deeper Stratagem goes as a choice node with Marked for Death. So now, after getting those 2 points in alacrity, instead of 3, you don't get to take Mark for Death, you get to choose between Deeper Stratagem and Mark for Death as an option. And right next to them, where Cheat Death used to be, since Cheat Death has been moved all the way back up to be a choice node with Elusiveness, the replacing talent in place of Cheat Death is Soothing Darkness. You are healed for 30% of your max health over 6 seconds after gaining Vanish or Shadow Dance. And finally, not that it matters too much, the improved Sap talent right after Shadow Step, which reduced the cost of your Sap by 100%, has been turned into Blackjack. Enemies have 30% reduced damage and healing for 6 seconds after Blind or Sap's effect on them end. So I am pretty positive about the discount changes, lethality, alacrity, and resounding clarity costing less points, 2 instead of 3 and then 1 instead of 2. Those are very positive. I'm a little bit less positive on now rogues having to choose between elusiveness and cheat death, and also between deeper stratagem and marked for death. That is likely not going to be as exciting as before, but we will see how things develop for rogue. Then we have the mini rogue, the scuffed rogue, the worst version of assassination rogue for quite a few expansions, which is feral druid. So feral druid has gotten way too many node changes and node movement around the tree to actually cover them all, especially since we don't have the updated full tree, which will likely come in the next few days. Blizzard is at the very least acknowledging some of the issues of the feral tree, in particular how they made the left side and the right side way too split between a single target and AoE. So it would just force you down a narrow corridor, either to go in single target or in AoE, and you did not have enough choices, enough middle of the way compromises between the two sides. So they are now trying to switch them up closer to the middle, make them easier to pick both sides of your type of damage you want, the single target or the AoE. They are also giving some more quality of life to Berserk, in particular because Berserk has the issue of not doing too much for your AoE damage, because it doesn't give you extra combo points to your AoE abilities, just to your single target ones. So the change is that now Swipe is going to generate a combo point in the same way Shred does. Of the things they are planning to change, you have some changes like Primal Claws no longer giving you a flat crit chance, but instead now gives you a chance per combo point spent to generate an extra combo point. Tireless Energy has also been changed and no longer gives you flat haste. Instead, now it gives you 30 to 60 energy at rank 2 and 10 to 20% increased energy regeneration as well. There is also another change much deeper down the talent tree, Eye of Fearful Symmetry, which is one of your current Feral Druid legendaries, which used to get your Tiger's Fury to cause your next 2 finishing moves to restore 2 combo points, has been changed. Now it's only 1 talent point needed instead of 2, and now causes your Tiger's Fury to grant 1 combo point after your next 3 finishers. And then, very similar to what Restoration Druid received, the follow-up buff to your Convoke the Spirits has also been added to Feral. Ashamane's Guidance now also reduces the cooldown of... As I said, we still need a little bit more... As I said, though, we still need a bit more info to get the bigger picture of the changes to Feral Druid. What and where, instead, we don't need to wait too much, because it has been quite meticulously detailed, is Mistweaver Monk. The first change is the change to Unison. Unison has now been made into a choice node with restorative proliferation to make the middle path towards Invoker's Delight more appealing for all builds and not just these straight throughput Soothing Mist healing builds. Also, there has been a switcheroo. There has been a triangle of switcheroos for Mistweaver Monk. The switcheroo looks like this. That's literally what it is. You have Overflowing Mists taking the place of Peaceful Mending. Peaceful Mending, all the way back down in the middle, goes to the right to take the place of Resplendent Mist, and Resplendent Mist moves to the left to take the place of Overflowing Mists. That is the switcheroo planned by Blizzard for Mistweaver Monk. Their explanation is that Overflowing Mist is too much of a situational power to be right in the middle of the tree, controlling the pathing to all of the last powerful talents, whereas they feel Resplendent Mist has more universal uses, so it makes more sense to put it in the middle. And Peaceful Mending shouldn't block off any pathways, but should feel like it contributes to navigating down the tree if selected. So that's why they went for this switcheroo of talents for Mistweaver Monk. Also, the talent all the way down to the right, the choice node between Bountiful Brew and Attenuation, your power-ups for your Bone Dust Brew, are now directly connected to Bone Dust Brew. So you don't have to spend other talents just to get this empowerment, now they are right next to it. The last of the change, you could say it's a nerf, because they are changing Tea of Plenty. The point is that they think that this bag of goodies of Tea of Plenty was too powerful, especially once they added Essence Font to be empowered. So instead now, they turned it into a choice node. Tea of Serenity will give Thunder Focus Tea an extra charge of Renewing Mist, Enveloping Mist, or Vivify, whereas Tea of Plenty will give Thunder's Focus Tea an extra charge of Renewing Mist, Rising, Sunkick, or Essence Font. So you now have to choose which one of the two sides of your abilities you want to get an extra charge of. So these on this Sunday have been all of the changes that Blizzard developers broadcasted to us. As perhaps you might have gotten used to this in the last few weeks. Usually, this is what we get towards the end of the week, the actual communication from Blizzard, and then by Wednesday and Thursday, when we actually see the new build coming in, we also get to see the changes to the spells, the changes to the abilities, more powerful, less powerful, buffs or nerfs. But in between these changes, we get the messages from the developers in how they are planning to change, to modify, to improve, or to just have different approaches to all of these talent trees, which is what we have gotten today. It is worth pointing out that across all of these changes we have gotten in the last few weeks, we have gotten quite a lot of communication on priests. Remember how much players were bitching that priests were being left alone and never touched and no changes whatsoever? Now in the last week, basically, we have gotten a whole lot of changes for all 3 specs and even their general tree. We have also gotten continuous changes to Mistweaver Monk. We have gotten some attention to druids as well now, as also, of course, the usual continued changes to hunters. If we had to make the ranking up right now of the specs and classes that have been left behind without basically any changes so far, we are left at this point with Guardian Druid and Restoration Shaman. Actually, they are the 2 ones that have received the least amount of changes so far. Right after them, we have Frost Mage, we have Retribution, Paladin, and we have the Warlock specs that have not gotten too much attention from the developers so far. Definitely at the top of the Blizzard care list at the moment, we have Priests, we have Hunters, we have Mistweaver Monk, Warriors, and Resto and Feral Druid as well have gotten quite a lot of changes so far. So of course what is left to see is just when these other specs and classes will get their turn at their changes. It's not really much a matter of if they will get changes, of course they will, it's just, you know, when it's gonna happen. For now, however, I'm going to leave you to the rest of your Sunday. Of course, as usual, thanks to all of my Patreon supporters for supporting me and this channel, allowing me to continue to produce content for WoW as we delve deeper in the beta of Dragonflight, of which, as it is always worth reminding, I am the main shareholder of the No Beta stock exchange firm. Of course. You can, of course, like and comment down below on this video, as well as subscribing to the channel if you want to support myself, my extended family, and my house pets even more. And also, for further social interactions, you can follow me on Twitter, as well as subscribing to my Patreon right down these 2 links. Subscribing, which, of course, will also give you access to my Discord server. If you ever want to pop by, ask some questions, give some feedback about the current content or the future content you would like to see, or simply just pop by and say hello, that's where I will be. Thank you guys, of course, for watching. See you guys soon, and in the meantime, finally it's getting cold. After weeks of the weathermen and weatherwomen fucking up completely, now we are finally below 20 degrees and it's finally starting to feel cool.